happened. All of Moscow is howling. Russians have admitted to something terrible. The Ukrainian armed forces have reshaped the front, and Trump has rewritten the terms of peace. The US has openly abandoned Russia. A loud blunder from the Kremlin. Turkey slammed the door and left Russia in isolation. Finally, the dictator is threatening Europe. Putin's army has entered, and Z-bloggers are running for cover. A charge of vengeance right on Moscow. You have to see this. Magyar is crushing Putin. Urgent evacuation. A ruthless sweep of the enemy in Pokrovsk. Ukrainian soil has finally heated up to incinerate the enemy forces. Kupiansk has become the place where the Russian army collapsed. The first details about the Russians' loud failure. Ukraine strikes Moscow, Magyar targets Putin, fighting in Pokrovsk and Kupiansk. Russia suffers setbacks, US prepares to respond.
Of decisions in the Russian Federation. About this and more in the following report. Shelling continues. Moscow and the region have been attacked by drones targeting the Shatura power plant in the Moscow region, specifically the power output node of the State District Power Station. This very power plant supplies the capital region of the Russian Federation with electricity and heat, according to the Russian publication Astra. The season of raids on Russia's strategic facilities continues, with drones making mass visits. The likely target of the attack is said to be the Lukoil Nizhny Novgorod refinery, a significant industrial facility in the region that plays an important role in the local economy. 3 wounded servicemen from an adjacent military unit who were injured during the incident were quickly evacuated by their fellow soldiers to the NRK hospital. This hospital is recognized in the area for providing specialized care to military personnel and civilians alike. Over the past week, most reports have indicated a noticeable increase in similar incidents occurring in the vicinity, which has led to heightened concern among both local authorities and residents.
So the armed forces have been destroyed.
The Russians were cleared out from the area of the Pokrovsk Pedagogical College railway station and Soborny Square. This made it possible to block the attempts of the occupying army and to amass forces there.
Ukrainian air assault forces cleared central Pokrovsk, removed Russians, blocked reinforcements, and strike small groups. Russian occupiers who had entrenched themselves in the urban buildings of this settlement. The main fighting is taking place in the area of the high-rise buildings which remain. At the moment, the enemy is unsuccessfully trying
to cross into the northern part of Pokrovsk via the railway, but is suffering heavy losses. The occupiers have also been blocked on another hot front, the Kupiansk direction.
At the moment, the provision of tax the coming months will be critical for Ukraine, according to
high-ranking American military officials, that is, officials from the United States military, to Kiev.
Last week. Moreover, the media reports that Europe is preparing for a possible halt in US aid to Ukraine. At the time when Western media reported on the 28 points of the so-called peace agreements, Ukraine's defense forces struck Russian territory using specifically American-made weapons. This referred to ATACMS missiles as well as their use would have been impossible without the consent of the US military and political leadership. The US Special Representative to the UN categorically stated that if the Russian Federation does not come to the negotiating table, the US will increase the scale of its military and technical assistance. Meanwhile, the presence
fact, Russian activity in Europe has increased. The UK Ministry of Defence reported intercepting a Russian warship and tanker. The British military says in the last 2 years, Russian ships near British waters rose by 30%. Urgent, Putin has lost. Peace will be on Ukraine's terms. The US has rewritten the plan to end the war. The document is already in Putin's hands. Putin has lost. Peace will be on Ukraine's terms. The US rewrote the plan to end the war. The document is in Zelensky's hands. Russian demands are rejected. Kiev played its cards well. After this, Trump isn't looking toward Moscow. Russian officials try to hide panic. The situation is tense. When will they finally announce the moment?
The peace plan is changing in Ukraine's favor, and by all accounts, the American side is completely satisfied. Any future agreement must fully respect Ukraine's sovereignty and ensure a lasting and just peace. This is the main point following the negotiations between the Ukrainian and American delegations regarding the peace plan in Geneva.
It's still too early to announce the results of the negotiations on Ukraine. They are ongoing. I think today was the most productive day we've had on this issue in a very long time.
According to Western journalists, the working version of the American peace plan for Ukraine already differs from what was previously published in the media. The framework document has been significantly revised.
Today was our most productive day on this issue in a long time. Western journalists report that the American peace plan for Ukraine has been significantly revised from earlier versions with fundamental changes made. Secondly, I think that the arguments presented by our delegation were sufficient for understanding. The Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, Rustam Merov, stated that the updated version of the American peace plan
takes into account most of Ukraine's fundamental demands. Moreover, he claims that the document has already reached the final stage. What exactly has changed, of course, is not being officially disclosed, but even the slightest changes are likely to displease Russia. However, as experts say, that's no longer Ukraine's problem. If
they do not agree to a plan that will be separately negotiated between Ukraine and the United States, the exact changes aren't disclosed, but even small ones could upset Russia. Experts say that's not Ukraine's issue now. If Russia rejects a plan negotiated by Ukraine, the US, and the EU, Trump will need to put more pressure on Russia. The so-called plan was presented. The Kremlin is still speaking cautiously about the negotiations, with no threats or ultimatums so far.
Peskov stated that they are supposedly very closely and carefully monitoring the situation as it develops. But officially, the Russians have nothing to do with it.
The Russian side was reportedly not told about changes to the peace plan. Meanwhile, Peskov
added that this week Russia does not plan to hold negotiations with the US delegation regarding Ukraine. This is further evidence that Trump's plans to hold negotiations before Thanksgiving on November 27th are falling through. Earlier, The Economist reported that the deadline for Ukraine to sign the American peace plan had been postponed. November 27th is no longer the final deadline. According to journalists, the issue of possibly cutting off Ukraine's access to American intelligence and weaponry has also been removed from the agenda for now.
As of today, it is clear that the process is ongoing. But it will happen.
This will not happen before the peace plan is discussed by Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump. Reuters reports that the president of Ukraine will travel to the US this week to meet with his American counterpart. According to sources, they will discuss the most sensitive issues of the peace plan, such as the territorial question.
Urgent. Erdogan has pressed on Russia's sore spot. Moscow is writhing in convulsions. You have to see this. The sea has turned into a trap. Russians are being turned back en masse. All entrances to the country are blocked. Putin was not prepared for this. Turkey is closing its doors to Russia for good. A tough decision has been made. The Kremlin has been left out of the political fleet. What does this mean? Don't miss what's next. The end of relations between Turkey and Russia.
responsibility for the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and readiness to help in the country's post-war recovery. This was stated by Turkish President Recep Erdogan during a joint briefing.
With the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, we once again reaffirmed our commitment to the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence of our strategic partner, Ukraine. At the same time, as Turkey, we are always ready to discuss proposals with Russia.
Volodymyr Zelensky, in response, emphasizes Turkey has become a key partner not only in matters of security, but also in the restoration of prisoner exchanges, a process that Ukraine hopes to restart by the end of the year. And
Ukraine hopes to restart prisoner exchanges by year-end, with Turkey playing a key role in peace efforts. Toward a dignified peace,
guaranteed security. If you look at Turkish policy, it has always been directed toward its own interests, both in relation to Ukraine and to Russia. For example, Turkey does not refuse to trade with the Russian Federation. They do everything that serves their interests. Of course, right now we are falling within Turkey's sphere of interest, and they support us to a certain extent. However, a certain degree of tension in the relations between Russia and Turkey is still not currently being felt. Russian tourists found themselves unexpectedly stranded.
On board a comfortable cruise liner traveling near the scenic shores of Turkey, passengers enjoyed the views as the ship made its way along the coastline. When the vessel reached Istanbul, a city known for its rich history and vibrant culture, the ship did not receive the expected supplies or permissions that were anticipated upon arrival. Permission to enter the port. There were more than 600 people on board, residents of the Krasnodar region, Moscow, and the Leningrad region, who had purchased a 2-week cruise costing about $3,000. The liner was supposed to call at Marmaris, Antalya, Bodrum, and Izmir. Previously, a similar situation occurred with the ferry Sibrich, which was supposed to resume cargo and passenger service between Trabzon and Sochi after a 14-year hiatus. Upon arriving in Sochi, the vessel was unable to dock and had to return back to Turkey. The Russian authorities explained the refusal by claiming the ports were supposedly not technically prepared and unable to ensure the safe reception of vessels. They say that restricting transport links is becoming a tool of pressure and an indicator of Turkey shifting towards supporting Ukraine, and the restriction of Russia's capabilities in the Black Sea.
This function is important. The Russian authorities explained the refusal allegedly by the technical unpreparedness of the ports and the inability to ensure the safe reception of ships. The media are already mentioning Turkey's responses to the actions of the Russian authorities. They say that restricting transport links is becoming a tool of pressure and an indicator of Turkey shifting towards supporting Ukraine and the restriction of Russia's capabilities in the Black Sea. We must not forget that both oil pipelines and gas pipelines that go. Meanwhile, Erdogan held a phone conversation with the Russian dictator. According to
the Kremlin, the parties discussed bilateral relations, the war between Russia and Ukraine, as well as regional and global issues. Putin allegedly confirmed the Russian side's interest in resolving the conflict through political and diplomatic means.
An exchange of views was held regarding the situation around Ukraine, including in the context of American proposals for a peaceful settlement. Vladimir Putin noted that these proposals. Putin confirmed Russia wants a diplomatic solution to the Ukraine conflict and called US proposals restrictive.
Erdogan, for his part, declared Turkey's readiness to continue its efforts in this direction. The Kremlin said the Russian-American summit in Alaska could help a peaceful settlement. President Erdogan said Turkey is ready to keep working for a just, lasting peace and to join this process.
In any diplomatic initiatives that will facilitate direct dialogue between the parties. Turkey is ready, as before, to contribute to all diplomatic, although
Ankara seeks to maintain its role as a mediator in Russian-Ukrainian relations. Its recent actions demonstrate an increasingly clear orientation toward international law and support for Ukrainian sovereignty. Right now, the West is holding its breath. Putin moves troops, raising war fears. Ankara mediates, supporting Ukraine. The West is worried. The Baltic states are acting preemptively and decisive calls are growing louder. The Kremlin's secret plans have been exposed. At the same time, Europe is mobilizing rapidly, events are unfolding swiftly, and France and Britain are ready to jump into the fight. Has the West encountered a problem it can no longer avoid? More on this in the report.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
In just a moment, war between Western countries and Russia is becoming increasingly likely. Safety.
As I carefully and thoughtfully analyze the build-up at this particular moment,
of military equipment, strengthening of borders and increasing the defense budget, all of this is to confront the Kremlin in a few years.
The buildup of military equipment, strengthening of borders, and increasing the defense budget. All of this is to confront the Kremlin in a few years. For now, everything
What Russia is capable of is testing territory. The patience of NATO countries, for example, with accidental flights of Russian drones into various countries. Patience.
Poland launched Horizon to protect border infrastructure after sabotage. Our entire border service consists of 1,040 people.
As part of the operation, Poland plans to use not only manpower but also military equipment, mobile security systems and reconnaissance complexes.
These patrols, assistance in guarding infrastructure facilities, training in first aid, tactical medicine, all of this is relevant. This should have been done a year or two ago. As part of the operation, Poland plans to use not only manpower but also military equipment, mobile security systems, and reconnaissance complexes. Only now, this is the country in the entire alliance that spends the most money on purchasing various military assets. They really have made a huge leap in recent years. Warsaw has also launched a program to train citizens in basic
security skills, from basic first aid techniques such as CPR to appropriate actions to take in various emergency situations, as well as other essential skills. The Baltic states have long
Britain and France have already made decisions about which specific military units could be sent to Ukraine, following careful internal discussions and evaluations. However, it is important to note that any actual deployment of these units will only occur after a formal peace agreement has been reached between the parties involved in the conflict. This means that until there is a clear and official end to hostilities, no troops will be sent, ensuring that any deployment is part of a broader effort to maintain stability and support the peace process. As for the scale of this potential deployment, current estimates indicate that the number of units involved will most likely be in the range of 10 to 15, reflecting a cautious and measured approach by both Britain and France regarding their involvement in the region. Nevertheless, any Western military training, whether it consists of joint exercises, advisory missions, or the transfer of military expertise and resources, is clearly not to the Kremlin's liking. They view such activities with suspicion and disapproval, considering them a direct challenge to their interests.
Continue to torment themselves even further. As a result,
with further increases in military budgets, which have been steadily rising in recent years due to various global tensions and security concerns, some countries, such as Poland,
are already almost
They have already reached it. Other countries are following this path, even though it is hurting their economies. But the main question is how ready European countries really are to confront the Kremlin at this moment, and how much more time they need to prepare. Germany, as they told me, needs at least another 2 years just to get their army into some kind of order. At least 2 years. Ideally 5 years. Ideally 5 to 7 years of experience, at a minimum 2 years, but no less than 2. From time to time, on various occasions, Ukraine and NATO openly and deliberately showcase and display new and advanced types of weaponry and military technology, clearly and unmistakably reminding the Kremlin
of their impressive and advanced capabilities. Turkey has officially unveiled its very first unmanned military Bayraktar.
Kizil Elma, which is now fully equipped and actively utilized by the national military forces, represents a significant advancement in defense technology. Meanwhile, the United States is currently launching the development of a new state-of-the-art F-47 fighter jet.
According to Trump, the F-47 will achieve a new level of invisibility, and Germany is even preparing Bundeswehr soldiers to practice actions in the event of the worst-case scenario. Europe is gradually ramping up its preparations and strengthening its defenses. This situation is clearly not in the Kremlin's favor, because at any moment Russia could face urgently, Putin is tightening the screws again. The regime of total control has been activated. The Kremlin is frantically reaching out to its Z-bloggers, trying to reshape reality. There has been a rupture. The war is no longer subject to the dictator's manipulations. Abdi Alaudinov suddenly finds himself at the center of a political storm, and Moscow is urgently searching for a new victim to pressure. Will Putin manage to force the propaganda machine to work for the war again? The base is faltering, the response is already on the horizon, and it could explode louder than the Kremlin expects. Don't miss it. Even in the West, they are now writing that Putin's regime has started hunting its own Z-bloggers. That's exactly the headline the Telegraph published. However, the internal details turned out to be much deeper. In short, the conflict erupted between those who speak about the situation at the front as it really is, and their opponents, the victory supporters who
We gave everyone a chance, everyone who, as they say, still has a tongue, to delete all the filth from their channels, and well, to apologize. In their publications, everything at the front is always fine and Russia is always advancing. We gave everyone a chance to remove all the filth from their channels and apologize for what they have written. Those who do not, we said we will start destroying them in the legal field through criminal means, so that each of them receives
as a servant, because it can't go on like this any longer. Chechen General Alaudinov has unofficially become the leader of everyone who at least occasionally tells the truth about the war. They praise both Akhmat and recruit new volunteers, and they also raise money for the units. However, because of their criticism, they have become enemies of the regime. The most prominent among them was Igor Strelkov-Gherkin. What happened to him is well known to everyone. Friends,
Please forgive me. He is behind bars among the recent victims of Omnidian, Tatamuntian, and Oksana, and the one who went after them is the head of the pro-government ZT group, Vladimir Solovyov.
And smaller authors of channels in its network. Friends, you will not forgive me, I am in mild rage, but all the active work to tell only victorious stories on the network fell apart as soon as Solovyov and company decided Solovyov.
He immediately renounced his fighters. But the situation did not end there. Alaudinov announced that the entire network faces either prison or repentance. And part of the net went to Bo. One of the first to go was a well-known figure in certain circles, a security guard who supported every attack by Solovyov on war correspondents and mobilized soldiers, Ilya Remeslo. He came to bow before Alaudinov with his head down.
I would like to call on everyone else who is still continuing, especially those who try to attack military personnel. Stop this immediately, because I have very precise information that action has already been taken against you. You have to admit, this really looks like the classic internet apology when someone in Russia crosses the line.
To give weight to Kadyrov's men. At the same time, Solovyov himself decided not to push his luck. The very next day, he showered the military services with compliments, addressed to the Chechen commander.
And this, as you can see right here at this very moment, let us take a closer look.
Apparently, was addressed to the Chechen commander, and this, it seems, at this stage helped the king of Z propaganda stay on his throne. The main message of Laudinov's next video was not retribution, but reconciliation between the parties. However, not without a hint that if the attacks from Solovyov's supporters don't stop, they definitely won't get away with it.
They will either end up in prison or they won't be living in Russia. That's all there is to it. And those who want to be on the team that will lead our country to our shared victory need to unite already. And keep on.
All these conversations, all this discussion, this chatter, perhaps the only pro-government,
The propagandist who was not intimidated by the threats coming from Atashka Ahmat was Anastasia Mironova. Despite receiving these threats, she did not back down or show any fear. She stood her ground and demonstrated resilience. She went on to publish yet another post, continuing to share her perspective and information with her audience. But probably
days on, the simpletons at large are already counted because she has lost Solovyov's support. And everyone knows well how Kadyrov's people know how to solve problems. At the same time, analysts are paying close attention to another notable feature of the situation. In this instance, Kobileva was fined by the authorities. However, it is important to note that the punishment she received, of course, is not considered to be particularly severe or especially harsh.
As for me, personally, I'd like to add my own thoughts. Let it be so. Over the past several days, the entire Zishi community has been practically jumping out of their pants with excitement and anticipation. There's been a strong sense of energy and enthusiasm in the air, as people from all parts of the community have been eagerly discussing the latest developments and sharing their hopes for what might come next. It's been remarkable to witness such a high level of engagement and passion from everyone involved. The phrase, "let it be so," really captures the collective feeling right now, as we all look forward to seeing how things unfold and hope for the best possible outcome for the community.
Arguing over who loves Russia more, which means we do. There's less time left for brainwashing, and not everyone survives this battle, which I must say is also quite pleasing. That's all from me for now. I'm Darina Hutsakalo. Even more hellish news awaits you in our next episode. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.